Welcome to the EdTech Unpacked podcast, where we inspire and equip educators to create meaningful learning experiences, highlighting the thoughtful approach to the integration of technology as we teach and transform the lives of our students. I'm Aaron Long.
And I'm Desmos Suarez. Today, I'm representing Washington Adventist University Schools. Send me your stuff to rep. But we are passionate about helping educators learn how to better teach, better use technology to engage their students. And today we're going to be talking about how to create effective and engaging formative assessment experiences. I think still for some educators, that's a weird word. Although
we'll talk about it in a minute.
I love that it's being used more often. But yeah, before we get into it, Aaron, I have a question for you, as we're going to start every episode with this so far. If you have good ideas, send them to us too. But the get to know you question: what was the first piece of technology, hardware, not like a game or something, that you remember purchasing all yourself?
Oh man, this is a good one. So this wasn't a computer item, okay, but it's the first thing I remember saving up for that was, to me, marvelous technology. And that would be like junior high age. I saved up and bought like a $300 boombox, is what I would have called it back then. It had the dual CD players on top, and could record, and it was somewhat mobile, had a battery element, so I could literally take it with me, but had detachable speakers, so I could set them in my room. So it was mobile, yet the speakers detached, and had the cable, of course. But man, I was so proud when I walked out of the store with that, with my own money. It was amazing.
I think I had one of those that was much less impressive. But
how about you?
Yeah, the first piece of technology that I remember being excited to buy, I'm such a nerd sometimes, was additional RAM for our home computer so I could play the games I wanted to play on it. I remember I had to have 32 megabytes of RAM on our computer to run a specific game. And so I think I bought a 16 gig stick. I can't remember. I think that's what I ended up buying. And then from Best Buy. And then later, like a week later, they had a sale. And I went to them and said, hey, what's the deal? Can I have my money or exchange it or something? And they actually just gave me cash, I think.
Wow.
For the difference. So I was impressed.
Do I ask about how old you were when this happened?
I was probably the same age, junior high, early high school. I was so excited to get that RAM.
That's a very different experience. We're a few years apart. Okay, so admittedly, I'm buying a boombox while you're buying RAM. I don't even think RAM was. Yeah, well, there you go. Pretty awesome. I listened to a lot of Kenny G on that boombox, some Elvis, and a lot of other stuff. I loved a cappella music, so all kinds of a cappella, but good times. And that's a great question here, which kind of leads us into our technology discussion here today. It's why we're here. And we're talking about engaging an effective formative assessment. So, Desmond, before we really get in too deep with this, I want to ask a few framing questions that we'll chat through a little bit here. But very first, I want to just ask, what is formative assessment to you? Maybe you kind of answer this and share what you think of when we say that.
Yeah, formative assessment. Well, the word assessment is a terrifying word still to me today. As I say it as a teacher, I still get scared. I should get over that. But assessment is ultimately a way to gauge where your students are in the learning process, how much they have learned. Summative assessment, and so it's easier to contrast it, I think. Summative assessment is there's no redemption. It's final. Final exam is the clearest form of a summative assessment. A formative assessment is what you do while the learning is not yet fully developed, fully gone, or not completed. And so it can be anything from like group discussion, like the teacher asking a student a question. It could be, them sharing with each other, anywhere that the teacher is getting feedback on where the student is. Some of it is more structured, some of it is less structured. Is that a good answer?
No, that's great. That's a great answer. And it kind of fits really well with I wouldn't say this is a definition, but the example I'll give here from Carnegie Mellon University. They have a little breakdown explaining the difference between the two, formative and summative. And here's how they frame it. They come at it from a what is the goal standpoint. The goal of formative assessment is to monitor student learning to provide ongoing feedback. So I like the ongoing part. That can be used by instructors to improve their teaching. So you have it's for instructors, right? You're learning from the process. And by students to improve their learning. More specifically, formative assessment, and they broke it down into 2 areas, helps students identify their strengths and weaknesses and target areas that need work. So students are identifying, right? They're learning from the process. And then on the teacher side, help faculty or teachers recognize where students are struggling and address problems immediately. Okay, I love how they ended that. It's to help address problems immediately. So if you think you're doing formative assessment and you're not immediately modifying how you're either teaching or interacting with students, and you're not immediately real-time learning where they're at academically, then really you could almost make the argument it's not very effective formative assessment. Even if it's engaging, even if the kids are having a great time, is it really effective? You could probably argue that it's not. Examples we have, maybe some things come to mind for you, Desmond, but exit tickets, whole group activities, individual checkpoints, lots of examples of different ways to do formative assessment. But at the root of it, ideally both teachers and students are learning to immediately impact the learning experience from the feedback. All right, so that takes me to question number 2 here. What key components are important when selecting a formative assessment platform? So I've got some things, but what comes to mind for you? Key components. Wow. Yeah, go ahead.
And listening to the way you just described that real-time decision, getting feedback as quickly as possible, I think sounds pretty important to me.
Yeah, that's right. The feedback, huge. So the way it was framed, obviously it's a little bit leading. Platform. Obviously we're using technology. Listen, you don't have to use technology to do formative assessment. Formative assessment pre-existed technology, right? So we're not saying that it has to, but in our context, obviously that's what we're here to talk about. So I'll share a couple of my bullets here that I had. Instruction directly ties to formative assessment. So this may not be super obvious, but I'll say it this way. A lot of times we as teachers, we might be using our curriculum to guide our instruction, and then we're finding sometimes random assessment platform. This could be a game-based formative assessment. It doesn't have to be highly structured. There's a lot of great ones out there. I still don't know how to say it. GymKit or GimKit, Kahoot. I love those.
My students will know how I resist Kahoot, but I'm glad you like it.
I love Kahoot and I love GymKit.
There's someone convert me one day.
Okay, well, it'll be a different episode. In fact, actually, I didn't tell you, but I'm actually planning a part 2 to this. That'll be more of the gamified versions of formative assessment. They're just totally different categories. Today's a little bit more on the structured side, and you'll see that here in a minute. However, a lot of times we pick an assessment platform that doesn't directly tie to what we just taught. Okay, so we'll introduce, and I like to call them mini lessons, in a mini lesson with the students, the content, the concept that you're trying to, get across. And then we'll jump on an assessment platform that's sort of assessing the same thing, but not exactly. And that really makes it quasi-effective. So I think picking a platform that ties to your instruction is critical.
Well, so I'm even more excited about your part 2 now, because that is actually one of the big reasons why I resist Kahoot so often, is that when I see it used, or the times when I've used it, which has not been many for this reason, is that I often felt like it was not an effective platform for the kind of assessment we were doing, that it rewarded the wrong things like speed more than knowledge, that has a terrible theme song that just gets in my head. Sorry, theme song. But yeah, I didn't feel like it matched up well. So that we're on the same wavelength about that.
Okay, well, that's great. Well, then you'll love my part 2.
Cool.
And that's coming. So you should not forget, like and subscribe, right? Subscribe. Okay, so real-time feedback for the teacher. If you're not getting real-time feedback, I think we've already talked about it. And surprisingly, not all formative assessment platforms are built for simple real-time feedback for teachers. So I think that's super key. The third thing I would mention here is easy for students to access. A lot of times we as teachers get hung up on the onboarding process, which is separate from the on-the-fly joining. I am okay to spend a lot of time onboarding students, which really now is not that difficult on most of these platforms. Rostering can happen through your LMS, whether that's Google Classroom or otherwise. Rostering has gotten a lot easier, but what really has to be simple is your day-to-day workflow. Kids have to be able to jump in and be on your formative assessment in seconds, not minutes. Okay, so that's key to me. And the last thing
That's a massive one for any technology. I feel like we should make a bullet list of technology rules. But if it takes a long time in the class to get engaged in it, throw it away. I don't care how good it is. Trash it.
That was a great idea.
Trash it.
You just had another great idea, though.
Of course, no.
A bullet-pointed list of, rules to follow for your classroom. Listen, that is worth exploring further, but I won't digress right now.
Come to our future store where you can buy a poster of that.
There you go. That's a great idea. Somebody's going to take that as soon as we've shared this, and that's fine. It'll be a great tool. All right. So the last thing I'll have, actually, I got two more here on this question, and I'll go quickly. Engaging students without missing the point. A lot of times, especially on the gamified side, you're having fun, you're playing around, but you're not really driving home the key learning. Okay, so that to me is huge. And honestly, if we're being real, a lot of times teachers get into I didn't go vet the lesson ahead of time, so I'm just going to jump on this platform that has pre-created lessons, and I'm just going to find something, and we're just going to do that. And guess what? You're going to get what you invested in. That's very little. If you're investing very little time in vetting the experience for the kids, it's going to be subpar. So don't do that, right? Vet your stuff, okay?
Yes. That's how we all learn, to make sure we vet our stuff.
That's right. And then the last one on this question, the ability to remediate and accelerate. If your platform doesn't lend itself to quickly being able to diagnose who needs remediation and who needs acceleration, then guess what? Your formative assessment platform is probably subpar, and I think you should keep looking.
I think those are important words. I also think those are words that we throw around a lot. Can you define those words for us real quick?
Sure. The remediate. So, and you'll see this because we're going to get into IXL here in just a few minutes. And IXL is really fantastic. So is Desmos. Both of them are great for this, but it's super easy to see who needs more help, who maybe has learning gaps. And that's remediate, right? Who has a learning gap so they can't quite complete the expected activity, and I need to go and give them more help than what the average student in the room needs. Okay, so I'm remediating. But if I can't see that immediately, and I'm not talking about distracted, that's a whole other thing, but who's struggling, then, maybe I need to look at a different platform. And then accelerate, obviously we all see that. We know what that means. Remediate sometimes can be a little challenging. So all right.
Progress students ahead or to be able to re-instruct them.
That's exactly right. Yep. By the way, another buzzword, Desmond, which teachers probably hate, differentiation, right?
I won't get on my soapbox about that.
Okay. All right. But anyway, so that's really what you're doing, though, if you're doing effective formative assessment, to be honest. Okay. We don't have to use the words, but that's what you're doing.
I'll just, for the audience, I'm not against differentiating instruction. I am very much for it, but I am against a lot of the buzzways that it has been promoted. And maybe I'll just save my soapbox for another episode, because it might be really good to use that term to help us use some technology on how you differentiate some stuff. Actually, an AIDI would be good. And
absolutely.
Yeah. So
let's do it.
But there's a lot of DI that is ineffective.
All right. Well, hey, I'm realizing our time right now. I don't know that we're going to get to the really, really good stuff if I don't go a little quicker. So I'm going to speed this up, but I'm going to give you the chance, okay, too. So question 3, these are all framing questions, obviously. What are some common pitfalls when attempting to integrate digital formative assessment? Desmond, what comes to mind? You actually already mentioned one with your pet peeve over not the platform, Kahoot, but when teachers maybe misuse it and speed is recognized over, the value or time spent on an answer. So what are some pitfalls that come to mind, or one for you?
The speed of like it's the games, like rewarding speed or rewarding things that aren't learning intents, right? So, when you're grading or you're assessing, your job as a teacher is to assess the things that matter, right? To assess the standards. For a long time in education, we have gotten stuck and given a lot of credit for things that were not related to standards. And we're still largely doing that. And I'm still largely doing that, but excited to, and I feel like I'm in the process of developing my shift to doing less of that and making sure I'm rewarding the standards, not the other stuff. And so, I guess it was assessing the wrong thing.
Watch our episode if you haven't on summative assessments, because we really dive into that exact issue. It's flipping your whole process, starting with the end in mind, right? Deciding what am I going to teach based on what am I going to assess, and you're designing assessment first and then instruction second. So excellent point.
But that happens in formative assessment too, where we start rewarding things that aren't to the learning intent.
Absolutely. All right, so here's what I've got. Finding a balance between direct instruction, formative assessment, and assignments. So, a lot of times we discover something new, we go all in on it. Our class time that we have allocated maybe becomes disproportionate in one area. For example, we like to do a 10-minute introductory lesson where we're sparking interest and giving some guidance, and then we have our flow down, and then we discover something new, and then that gets squeezed, and the assignment piece gets squeezed out. And this is key, because what I have found is students will quickly become very frustrated with the formative assessment piece if they recognize their working time in class just got squeezed out by it, and you've gone to, I maintain my instruction, my formative assessment now takes me 20 minutes, and so I'm left with 10 or 15 minutes of working time. What does that mean? Homework for the kids? They're not going to like it. They pick up on it immediately. They get anxious to get to the working time, so they're not stuck with a bunch of homework because we've got this new process we want to roll out. So I would say you've got to be super careful and intentional about the time you spend in each of these areas in class. All right. Not enough time supporting students who need additional help or simply help refocusing. So what are you doing with what you're learning? Okay. Actually designing your class time to learn in one class who needs help, and in the same class, give additional support to those students. If you're not doing it, you're wasting your time on formative assessment. It's not something I do tomorrow because of what I learned today. It's real-time adjustment to how you're interacting with the kids. Let's see here. 2 quick ones. Well, I actually kind of already summarized the letting your formative assessments run too long, so I'm going to skip over that one and just say getting started without all students participating. I've seen teachers make this mistake many times where you say, all right, guys, jump into IXL, jump into whatever, Kahoot, and 12 of the 18 kids are in, and so you get going. And what happens with those other 6 kids? Maybe a couple join eventually, but guess what? They're like, he didn't notice. He doesn't care. So I'm going to work on something else, or I'm going to goof around, or listen, this is critical to success. Every student has to be noticed, and you have to ensure that every student is on the platform before you begin. It's absolutely critical in my experience. All right, one more question, and then we'll get to it, all right? Last question here. So what other factors help ensure a successful formative assessment experience for students? Desmond, anything else I haven't mentioned yet that you can think of?
How
about while you're thinking?
I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'm going to jump in because I have a few.
Go.
Okay. To me, it's critical. All right. You're going to see here in a minute, I'll be using 2 devices. I'll have my iPad and I'll have my laptop. I have found it's actually really, really challenging to do what I prefer to do in the classroom, and that is sharing a screen with the class at all times. I love to have my screen up because a lot of times you're going to pivot from assessment to instruction. It's not like everything's perfectly blocked. You might have to come back and reteach something for 30 seconds or a minute using your screen. So I keep my screen up all the time. What does that mean? I don't want to share sensitive data with the class. Okay, so maybe we're hiding names. We don't want to show who's who. So I have my laptop up for that, and I'm real-time instructing from my iPad. So I think having 2 devices is actually super key to me to running an effective formative assessment experience.
Not with assessment as much, but for monitoring my students, I have GoGuardian now running on my iPad. I'd only been running off my laptop for teaching for many years, and I recently added an iPad to my my tech in my classroom, and it really has made a difference in keeping with all the students' devices, keeping them engaged and on task.
And for the iPad schools out there, launching Apple Classroom and having the comfort of mind to know you can minimize that, and it's recording all of the app activity in the background. So at the end, run that report. Teachers, you know what I'm saying. Don't get lazy. At the end of class, hit in class, run your report, see who was doing what. Super key. Yes, you don't watch every action, but you're seeing their app activity.
More and more as I have like GoGuardian on my iPad.
It's amazing.
Monitoring my students has really helped me.
Hey, I'm going to skip to my last bullet point here then, Desmond, because this is right in line with monitoring.
Yes.
Physically moving around the room. We get too tied to our technology. That's why having a tablet or something that's mobile that you're doing your primary monitoring on, walking around while you have the ability to instruct, you're wirelessly screen sharing, and you're able to engage with the kids, see what they're doing firsthand, be in proximity. You're not stuck at the front of the room. Those are all the rookie mistakes that we've all learned not to do, right? So, hey, if you haven't gone down that path yet, don't waste your time.
Yes.
It doesn't end in a happy place.
That has been the greatest thing about having GoGuardian on my iPad is that I can carry it while I walk around the room teaching.
Yeah.
It really is good.
Awesome. Hey, one more here, and then we'll get to it. Incentivize students to give their best. Okay, I'm going to share some examples of how I did that, have done that, and would like to see other teachers do it. But students need to be motivated. Sometimes competition alone spurs that. Sometimes it doesn't. Not everybody's highly competitive. And so I think, giving students reasons to want to do well is super key. So, having said that, Desmond,
let's unpack the tech.
Let's do it. Here we go. All right, so we're going to, first of all, jump into IXL. IXL is like love it or hate it for a lot of teachers and students, okay? We're not going through necessarily and saying, hey, use IXL. The idea is, like all the things that we do on this show, we like to show processes and implementations, things that can impact your classroom without necessarily being too attached to a platform or a tool. So it's the idea behind it, right? So as we're doing this, one of the features I love about IXL is group jams. So we're going to go ahead and start a group jam in IXL. And Desmond has been so kind to join on the student side, and you'll see the process there in a moment. And I have a secondary student on my iPad here, which we'll see in a moment as well. So to do this, we're simply going to go through learning. There's a lot of ways to get to this area of IXL. But I'm going to go and just say, hey, we want to look at 8th grade math skills. All right, so learning tab, math, 8th grade math skills. And, I love to look at linear equations and graphing linear equations. I figure one of these episodes, Desmond's going to be so comfortable with graphing linear equations because I like to pick on this topic that he's going to compliment me and thank me for always coming back to the same topic.
I haven't done it for so long until we start doing this, so I got to go and do some research on my own before I get more embarrassed.
No, this is the episode where you have your breakthrough, okay? It's okay, Desmond, all right? So
you guys are witnessing my private tutoring classes.
That's right. So all of these activities have specific links, and so it's easy to get there and also easy to share with students. Beyond the assigning element, it's easy to grab the links. Once I'm in an activity, all I have to do is click on Start Group Jam. Again, this isn't so much a how-to, but you're going to see a little bit of how-to. And you can see the topic I've chosen. I also have the option to add another skill. So in this same group jam, we could practice several different skills. I'm going to go ahead and say all students. You see Desmond here. Oh, look at this. The other student's named Top Student. That's really interesting.
I thought I was Top Student.
So, well, we'll see, Desmond. We'll see.
Bottom student.
So what you're going to see, Desmond, at the top of your screen is a blue bar. that pops up.
And I'm a noob to all this. I'm not just pretending to be excited. Right. I have not done it before.
Legit.
Aaron's talked about it like ever since I met him.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay, I am in there.
All right. And from my screens, I can see you in there. Okay, so I see it's popped in, and it says Desmond Suarez is still working on this question. So as Desmond's working on this question, I'm just going to share, typically for me, this would follow what I would call a mini lesson. I like students to know I'm trying to keep it brief, okay? And so I'm able to pivot on my iPad here. So I'm going to jump over to my iPad view of this, which is a student view, but I'm going to pivot to Notability. So the concept would be I could be working, mirroring my screen and giving an introduction to the concept. And on the very next screen, I will have my IXL up. So I can go back and forth between these screens. Of course, I'd be signed in as a teacher, and now I'm signed in as a student. So I'm going to go ahead and see if we can graph this line here using the equation given, and we're going to say submit and see what happens. Oh, look at that. I got praised. Desmond, I see your green check mark. Okay.
You didn't see my celebration earlier. You were too busy doing that stuff. But yes, I was excited. I got it right first try.
Listen, I'm going to go back to the lessons we've already spent together on other platforms doing this. You took an assessment, if you don't remember, in Edulastic, now Pear Deck Assessment or Pear Assessment, that we covered this topic. Okay, so I want to say I have a small hand in your success already. All right, we're just reinforcing today. This is amazing. On the teacher side, you can see what I can see. All right, I can see the students. If I cursor over them, I see their name and exactly what they submitted. As soon as I cursor over, I see their answer. Love it. I can see a quick snapshot here of how many students were correct and how many were not correct. I have the ability to move to review at any time. And what I love about this is I have this screen up in class, but I'm careful on my iPad not to cursor over the names of the students because I don't want to embarrass anybody and say who got it wrong. But what I do, and this is back to the reward side now, I name and shout out every student real time as they submit their answers. So I'd be like, Desmond, great job. Top student, awesome. So I'm verbally prompting as the answers are coming in, and as soon as everybody submits, and not until, okay, if somebody had not submitted, I would see their bubble was not completed with a green check mark or a red X. You can visually see who has not submitted. Super key. When we're ready, I say move to review. Desmond, you'll notice on your screen, it's moving your screen as well, and we can scroll through the explanation and take a look here at, if I had missed it, what IXL's explanation is. Another thing I love about IXL is it gives a breakdown of the question asked, not of a similar type of problem. Some platforms will say, here's how to do this concept. IXL shows, here's how to do this exact problem. Love that because it allows for a certain degree of independent practice without teacher help, because students are able to see, oh, here's what I did wrong on this question. Now, we're going to move this up a level and say, all right, we're going to a harder question. Desmond, you ready?
All right. For example, should I get it wrong? I mean, I might get it wrong anyways, but
I actually want to see if you can get this right.
All right, so you get it wrong on your device.
I'll wait and see how you do before I decide.
Graph this line.
Although I think you're going to get it, Desmond.
Oh man, okay. So I start at 7.
All right, as Desmond's working hard here. All right, other ways you can motivate students.
Dude, I got it.
You've got, all right, now I've got to get it wrong, okay? And I'll just pause here before I do. By the way, Desmond, great job. Okay, I want to verbally prompt you. This is key. I'm not kidding.
My 7th grade math teacher would be so proud of me.
Hey, this is 8th grade math, Desmond.
This
is 8th grade. So you can see my bubble for me is still not filled in. There's no check mark and no X, so I don't know what's happened yet. All right, Desmond, I'll get it wrong. Here we go. I hate seeing that, but there you go.
Top
real time.
Student. I don't think so.
Red X. All right, so now we can go ahead and say move to review. But before we dive into that, I just want to say, there's plenty of other great ways to motivate your students. One of the ways I like to do that is through only a few planned formative assessment questions. I might literally do only 3 of these, maybe 4 of these with the students synchronous.
So this would be in place of like starting math class with a quiz, as I know a lot of teachers do?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact,
Okay.
this is preceded by a mini lesson. Okay, I'm going to teach the concept.
Okay.
They've just learned how to do it, and they know there's a quiz, a formative assessment coming. Literally every new introduced concept, this is my flow. Okay, mini lesson, straight to formative assessment, real time. Okay, that motivates the kids. We talk about motivation. If they know there's an immediate formative assessment, then they're going to pay better attention during your mini lesson, because they know if they don't, the way I like to flow this is 2 to 4 questions just like this. Students that don't pass what I call a challenge question. Okay, so it's students that don't pass a challenge question continue to participate in the formative assessment, and we stretch it out. And so it might look like we're giving a question. Let's say on this one, 14 of my 20 students got it correct. The 6 additional students, if that was the challenge question, remain in the group jam. The rest of them, I say, you're good to go. You may begin your assignment. And I let them begin independent practice while I continue to work. And then on my iPad, I flip screens. I go back to Notability, and I'm reteaching a concept or showing this exact question we just did. I'll do it quickly on my iPad. All right, you guys ready for the next one? Here we go. So they're motivated to focus because they know that they're kind of stuck in this equilibrium zone with me, and they really want to get on to their assignment. So it's not always like a reward, immediate gratification, but it is freedom to get started on their assignment and limit their homework time. So that's one of the ways I like to press on, motivating kids to focus. I shout them out. I proximity them if they're distracted, but then I reward them by freedom to work on their assignment as soon as they complete the challenge question. So you can kind of get the idea here of how this flows. I'm going to say in jam. Desmond, you've done amazing here. We're ending the jam. On your screen, you just got a notice about that. And on my screen, I can see, guess what? This is amazing. Okay, this is going out for the world to see. Top of the jam, student with the most correct answers, 2 out of 2, Desmond Suarez. Congratulations.
This was all a coup to make that top student the bottom student.
That's right.
The top student.
That's right.
My coup worked.
Okay, so how did we use that? We used it for every student. We used it quickly and efficiently to follow an actual introduction of the concept. And we're paying attention to every student, shouting them out. We're giving freedom to those that have showed us they could do it. And let's be real. Sometimes what I just showed you isn't enough for the kids to always, to a student, get the questions correct. So then what I do, say I have 3 or 4 left, we'll go ahead and end the jam and say, hey, you guys, come on over, join me at this table. And then I'm going to give them some guided support on their assignment till I'm convinced that they do know how to do it correctly. So, we don't want to keep them stuck in that zone too long, but you're whittling down. We talked up at the top of this episode, Desmond, about remediation and acceleration. The remediation side, if I haven't figured out who needs extra help on this activity real time and I have not intervened real time, I've missed the whole point of it. So that's the flow that I love to use for IXL.
I have to read this closer. I got the next one wrong.
Did you keep working, Desmond?
Yeah, I did. Sorry.
Hey,
I was listening to you at the same time, I'm sure.
This gives us a great opportunity here to showcase one other thing. I'm going to click over to Live Classroom. I go to My Excel Live Classroom and check it out. Here's Desmond. I can see he's working.
Oh, I figured it out. I know why.
All right, this is great. So even though this is not group jam where I'm seeing their screens live, I can actually click on each student in this realm and see what they answer. So Desmond, everybody's seeing what you answered. Okay, really close there. I'm glad you discovered it, but we'll let you work through that.
I think my mistake is obvious. I went to 8 instead of adding 2 and 8 together. But
okay,
I got that 2 plus 8 is 10. I did know that part, just didn't apply it properly.
I see that here. That's all right. We're here to support you, and you've shown great prowess already. So
Thank
we
you.
believe next time we do one of these, you're going to even do better. Okay?
Of course I will.
All right, so that's IXL. Just a little snippet of how to use formative assessment. Just a shout out to them. They've really grown what they have available. Lots of other topics, science, social studies, Spanish even is in there, language arts. Great resources. I'm a huge IXL fan. I could have a whole episode on that. All right, we're going to pivot to the next one, though. You ready for this, Desmond?
Let's do it.
We're going over to Desmos. Again, I'm not getting stuck on how to today. This is more the type of formative experience that I love to push out to students. So, Desmond, I'm going to give you a join code, but first of all, I'm going to have you go to student.desmos.com. Student.desmos.com. Now, this is easily rosterable, so I can roster my students. I can sync them with Google Classroom as an LMS example. What we're doing today in terms of joining, this is probably the worst way to do it, but for our purposes today, it was the easiest way to do it. So that's why we're doing it this way today. Desmond, tell me when you're ready for your code.
Ready.
M6JJRY. M6JJRY.
I don't know if you have an answer for this, but are you planning on leaving that open so that any of our audience members can?
Oh, I set it to expire in 48 hours, so they won't be able to, yeah.
So I still have to log in? Okay.
Nope, at the bottom, it's continue without logging in for today.
I should have canceled this. I'm not logging in. Okay, continue.
And you're going to enter your name. Okay, you can pick your own name. All right. I've picked my name. I just want you to know. You can pick your own name on this one. All right. So I see my student activity there. And on my teacher screen, I can see I have one student in, and now I see you've popped in. All right, so I see both of us are on screen number 1. Notice across the top here I have snapshot, I have summary view. I can see each slide, how each student is progressing. I have a teacher view and a student view, so I can see things real time how a student would. On the student slide, hey, look, if this is my first time in here, I don't even know what's going on. This does take a certain amount of sharing with the kids to, get them going. Once they learn the platform, it gets much easier because a lot of them look similar. But here we go. Here's the whole game. Launch the marble to hit all of the stars. Got it? So here we go. I'm just going to hit the launch button. Desmond, you do the same.
I did.
And what happened, Desmond?
I hit the stars.
Yes, and you hit them. So what did you do? You went to the next slide. You're like, I did that.
Of course I did.
Well, all right, so we're on to the next slide. Let's just peek through here. I can see Desmond's screen, and I can see what he's working on real time on slide 2. So that's a real-time view of Desmond's screen on slide 2.
I don't know what I'm doing. I do need some guidance on what
So Desmond, I'll talk you through this one a little bit. Just go ahead and say launch again and see what happens with the balls. Don't change anything.
Oh, okay, that was successful. I tried changing things. I didn't.
They set you up for success, Desmond. You just had to take the bait.
Pushing buttons.
So we're launching, and we're you can see I'm going to leave my screen on slide 1 as a student here, so you'll see this in a minute. Before we continue, though, I want to share a feature I absolutely love for formative assessment time, and that is pacing students. So let's say I can see Desmond's a real rabbit. He's racing here. I'm going to say restrict to screens 1 to 4. And on the teacher side, I see that. On the student side, he'll just get stopped at the end of slide 4. Okay. So maybe that's my checkpoint where I want to sync everybody up, do a quick little reteach. So we're going to continue. This next one here, I'm going to go to slide 3 with Desmond. Now, Desmond, here's where we get into some real-time editing. In the field on your left, row 1, type y equals. And let's take a guess here. Desmond, what do you think the y-intercept is going to be of this line? You already got it. Okay. If I was on my teacher screen, I would see it. Y equals x. And what do you notice about the line as you're editing your equation? The line real-time moves, doesn't it? All right, so Desmond, you're going to notice as you're editing the equation of the line, it's moving on you, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's actually responding to your inputs in a way that, let's say you'd forgotten a little bit here. It brings to life this equation in a way that's simply not possible, to be honest, even in IXL, because IXL isn't responding to that real-time input. It's accepting my input, and then we're paced together. This is real-time feedback as it gets. And when I like it, I say launch. If I hit all the stars, I say success. A lot of these interfaces, so go on to slide 4 and give it a shot.
Now I'm your top student. I'm acing it. You were right.
And you know what? When I go to my summary view, I see check marks, Desmond, across the board. And guess what? I just noticed your name is Desmond, top student. I certify you, sir, as Desmond, top student. You've done incredibly well. Another thing I'll share here is when I click on each of these screens, when I'm in the teacher view, I see Desmond's inputs. Okay, I don't see mine because notice I'm still stuck back here on slide 1. When I cursor over my name, I see who that is. That's top student stuck on slide 1. Again, I have this real-time feedback, not just of who's being successful and who's not, but who's lagging behind, because this is somewhat of a modified, it's not totally synchronous experience that I'm pushing out in this example. I could lock each student to one slide at a time through my pacing if I wanted to. This is actually how I run it. I'll give a set of slides available to the students and let them go. Hey, best thing about this, I didn't program any of this. I didn't design this activity. Desmos has thousands and thousands of just top-notch activities made by other teachers, ready to go. And to be honest, the way I find them typically is through a search engine. I'll Google it. Desmos followed by some trigger words that are type of activity I want. And I found that to be a lot more effective than using the Desmos search. Well, maybe they'll fix that. But it's super easy to find these activities just by going to your search engine. And of course, setting up an account at teacher.desmos.com. Free, totally free. IXL has a fee. This one's totally free. Love it. This could be any subject, but on Desmos, it's math. Okay, it is math. There are other great platforms that do similar things. But there you go. This is something I love to do, and I kind of ping between IXL and Desmos. Desmond, what did you think of this one?
I like it, and I'm curious what you think of my current answer. But it works. I did 1 over 1.2 x plus 1.7, and it worked. Yeah, it's pretty good. I like how interactive it was. I didn't hear half what you said because I was playing Desmos.
Listen, this is pretty wild. I've pulled up your screen because I can see from my side what you entered. That's amazing.
It was successful.
I love the creativity. I would probably shout out a student for that level of creativity or creeping the lines.
Yeah.
And, you're not sure what to put, so you're just making micro adjustments. Guess what? If it works, awesome.
There you go.
There's a certain level of learning going on. So.
Do you want me to show schoolai real quick?
Let's do it. Share schoolai.
Okay, now I have to admit, this is something I've demoed a bunch of times for teachers and trainings I've done. And I just haven't found the right lesson. Although why I was thinking that before I said it, I was like, I think I might be in the middle of the right lesson. So I might try it in class. But schoolai is a demo or a product we have talked, I think, briefly about in our AI episode. But it does a lot of things, but the key feature is their spaces. And so you can have students talk to a historic figure. And so the one that I'm thinking is I'm teaching the Protestant Reformation right now, and I'm going to have my students talk to Martin Luther. Now I'm going to constrain it. I'm going to have them talk to Martin Luther about the 95 Thesis, or talk to him about something specific, or about how the printing press affected his work and how he felt about that. And so they can chat with this historic figure. I will say my testing, it works a lot better with really popular, famous historic figures more than the obscure ones, and also ones that are less controversial. So Martin Luther might be too religious. We'll see. It doesn't like to get into religious fights. But I think it should work with Martin Luther. But here is Abraham Lincoln. And the cool thing I want to demo here is that these are a bunch of teachers I did a webinar with. Got rid of any last names. But you can see what they've been doing. It gives smiley face feedback anytime they are doing something right. And it will give different levels of smiley face. I can click in on any of these and I can see what exactly they're talking about. This one says, I'm hungry for lunch. Spelled it wrong. It's a teacher. I won't tell who it is. It's great black became free. Man, their grammar is not great. And so they're talking about random things. And then it will give me AI summaries. And if this was live, this would dynamically change as the students are chatting. And so this one says that Lisa, student believes that people use laser cannons because of Lincoln. And the AI gives it a like, I don't know about that. It says that Dave is having difficulty staying focused on the topic of the Emancipation Proclamation and the Civil War, frequently diverting to unrelated topics like baseball. LM is a student that seems unfamiliar with the Emancipation Proclamation and its impact on the Civil War. Yes, these were teachers. I don't do that with what you will. But I know they were just playing with the platform.
But Desmond, in all fairness, we get this all the time, right? Anytime you have a lack of knowledge in some area, people love to say, but you're a teacher.
Yeah.
Wait, let's be real. Being teachers doesn't mean we have mastery
your math help.
There you go.
No, but these teachers were also trying to mess it up. I told them to break it, so it's my fault. But the cool thing is that you talked about the live feedback in your formative assessment platform. And so you can get these summaries, because if you have a big class, you can't read everything they're doing, although you can click in and read it. But the summaries are really helpful because it helps you understand quicker than you could read each one, where the students are at and how to provide them assistance. And if you're walking around the classroom, looking at that on your tablet, you could say, hey, I see you're a little off topic. Let's get back on task. Or you could say, or give them assistance and fill in those gaps, or redirect them a little. So I'm excited to try this in class.
That's awesome. And we were thinking through this a little bit in advance of this episode. And when Desmond mentioned he wanted to share something on the AI side, it's really struck us that there's been such a rapid advancement in AI. Like, we need to be more intentional to highlight the implementation of AI across topics. So you're going to see more highlighting of AI in future episodes because it's going so far, so fast. And there's too much to show with it. And then by the time we get to it, it's already changed. So that's a great ad, a great share. It kind of makes the work of formative assessment super easy when basically all the thinking is sort of being done by a machine.
Yep. And that gives you to the social part, like the social studies and those components, rather than what you're showing is primarily math, although it has other stuff as well, which is a big reason why I haven't used it, IXL or Desmos, because it doesn't align with what I teach.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, hey, this has been great. We've covered a lot today, and most of all, we just want to say thank you for joining us on today's journey into EdTech Unpacked as we talked about how to integrate effective and engaging formative assessment to benefit your students and to benefit your teaching.
Today, we talked about key components of when selecting a formative assessment platform to use. Common pitfalls, that word I can't say. Other key factors to help ensure success. And we also demoed IXL, Desmos, and schoolai. And we hope they were helpful for you.
We want to encourage you, if you have questions, things we can help with, send your EdTech problems to be solved to our help desk. Along with any other feedback, you can do that by visiting our website, edtechunpack.com, where we have a place you can actually submit an audio recording, and we might even play that on air in a future episode or use the contact form. We'd love to hear from you.
And finally, maybe most importantly, we want to leave you with a blessing. We think you are incredible teachers. We know that you signed up to be a teacher, not for the paycheck, but because you wanted to change lives, and you are doing that. These are cool tools we talk about, but you as an individual, as a teacher, are way more powerful than any tools that we could ever share. And you are doing incredible things. And we hope that you feel blessed by what you are doing and the things that are happening in your classroom. You are making a massive, massive difference. And remember, there is no substitute for great teaching. It is not just about the tools and the technology you use, but how you foster meaningful relationships with your students to transform their lives. Be blessed.